Hello, this is Joshua for Frost Dragon Designs, and today I'd like to talk to you about my Spilled Roses kitty heart enamel pin. This is design number 14 in my Cute Cat Monthly Pin Club. Each month, members of the club get a new Cute Cat pin right in their mailbox. If you sign up for the club before January 22nd, 2023, this will be the first club pin that you receive. They'll be shipping out in early February, hopefully just in time for Valentine's Day. But if you miss the January 22nd deadline, don't fret just yet. Pins from the Pin Club do go up for general sale a couple months later if they're still available, and for only a couple dollars more than their Pin Club price. So if you're interested in getting a Cute Cat pin in your mailbox every month, feel free to just visit the link that's in the description below and sign up for the club. Now let's get into the design. So this is the same cat head that I used on the Bumblebee cat, on the cat astronaut, and also the cat who had his arm in the fishbowl and he's trying to get the goldfish. I used the same heads just for consistency's sake. I could start over from scratch each time, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that with the head of the kitties. But the bodies, it makes a lot of sense to start over from scratch. Sometimes I'll borrow a paw or something like that for consistency's sake. But a lot of times I'll just start from scratch with the bodies. And that's because the posing makes such a huge difference in the emotion that you're trying to get or showing the action of what's happening. This kitty, when I did some quick sketches of what I might like, I knew that he was going to be sitting somewhat near the spilled roses. If any of you have had cats who like to knock things over, my cat that I used to have, she would knock over glasses of water and then she would sit near them. For whatever reason, I think she wanted to make sure that I knew that it was her that had knocked over the water. It's a very cat-like behavior. I've had other cats growing up that were very similar in temperament. Still find it to be a little bit of an odd thing, but so the idea of the cat knocking over this vase of roses made a lot of sense to me, and having the cat sitting there for you to observe, yep, I knocked over the flowers and there's water all over the place now. It just seemed like a very cat-like thing to do. When I was working on the body of this cat, I thought that it might be fun to have kind of a little tuft of fur on the chest area. I was having trouble making the connection of the legs look the way I wanted it to, and that was just a nice aesthetic that covered up the problem area for me. So that was both out of convenience and it looks good. So that was nice. After I got the kitty to a point where I was generally happy with it, I decided to move on to drawing a quick puddle and then work on the actual vase itself. The puddle's not that difficult. I've done puddles before. I had a kitty who was sitting in front of a puddle under a red umbrella. So I kind of know what that's going to be looking like. I also had a cat with a cauldron with liquid spilled out. So like illustrating the puddle wasn't such a big deal. But the vase was a little challenging because I wanted it to feel like it was kind of in perspective a little bit. I wanted it to feel like a 3D object. And that can be really challenging sometimes to get that to look correct when it's not, straight parallel lines. The shape of the vase that I wanted, it's, it narrows at the top and then has a flare. So it can be challenging to get objects like that to look like they're actually sitting on the ground and, are in proper perspective. So that was a bit of a challenge. After I got a basic shape there, I moved on to roses. I love drawing roses. I first learned how to draw roses as a teen. It's the same shape nested and wrapped around itself over and over and over. So there's a lot of kind of tricks that you can use to illustrate roses quickly and easily if you're not going for a fully realistic effect. But for the purpose of the pins, as long as the basic shape looks correct, and as long as I kind of have these kind of shapes at the top of it to show where individual petals might be, it really reads well as a rose, despite the fact that it is, not anything more than a basic shape with a couple lines at the top of it. I think that that's really neat. I've also done, roses in colored pencils and watercolors. They're one of my favorite flowers to do illustrations of, regardless of what medium I'm working in. Something else I wanted to note while we're just looking at this and while I'm drawing more roses, the colors that you're going to see in this video for the water and the vase differ from the colors on the actual pin. What happened was my production partner accidentally used the wrong color for one of the two colors. Sometimes it's really important that the colors match exactly what I wanted them to be. Other times, not so much. This is one of those times where it really didn't matter so much. I wasn't trying to color match a previous pin that I had done. This isn't part of a multi-pin series or anything like that. So in this case, the fact that the blues aren't the exact blues that I wanted them to be doesn't really make that big of a difference. Still a very cute pin, and I'm still very happy with it. But as you can see, there's a lot of detail on the flowers, and so the petals themselves as well as the rose stems. That's a lot of little cells to be filled in. It made me a little nervous to have a pin like this produced, but I think honestly I get nervous about most pins being produced. And on the plus side, a lot of those cells, a lot of those very small cells are right next to each other. So it's a mass of green cells, which is easier for them to fill. They can kind of fill across those and then polish it down to the metal lines, and it doesn't really have a big issue. But the stems that are in the vase itself, there's white in between those. So obviously that part made me a little more nervous because they had to be, they would have to be careful to make sure that whatever color is in between those green sections doesn't spill over into it. So while I was a little nervous about that, I decided that I would, trust the skill and capability of my production partner, and I went ahead with the design as I had done it. I partway through decided that I would like the vase to have a bit more dimensionality to it, give it another color in there. But I wasn't exactly sure how the cat's paw was going to be resting. So you can see what I did there. I had to actually shift the cat over because there was this awkward little white cutout space in between the edge of the vase and the cat. And that would have been, I think, difficult for them to produce, and it didn't really serve an artistic purpose. Sometimes I will have small cutout areas, and it's, an integral part of the design. It makes sense. It's needed for the design to work. In this case, it was just there because I hadn't fully planned out how the pin was going to come together. So by shifting the cat over to eliminate that cutout space, I think that made for a much stronger design, as well as made it easier for my production partner to produce. And this is actually something interesting too. What's happening here is I'm basically making an extra version of the shape for the vase and then cutting out the middle part of it. So that white rimming that goes around the whole edge of the vase, that's actually one shape with a hole cut in the middle of it. And then the flower stems and the water and everything else inside of it is actually behind that piece. This whole thing, if you want to think of it, is kind of like when you're a kid and you have construction paper and you're cutting out the shapes and you layer them on a piece of paper and glue them down to make a picture. That's pretty much what this whole process is. I'm making lots of shapes that are different colors, and then they're layered on top of each other to make the final image. And just because something looks like it's on top doesn't necessarily mean it's on top. It could be, or the thing that's on top of it might stop at the edge to let it be seen. So it's kind of an interesting way to work. Working with vectors like this is very different than when you're working on like a physical painting or even a digital painting. It's a different thought process to put these things together, because it's not so much that you're blending colors together and that sort of thing. You're literally defining edges. Like the whole process of designing a pin is a process of defining where edges are and then what is filled inside of those edges. I just really enjoy the process. It's a different way of thinking. I get to make things that I want, that aren't already out there. I mean, yes, I have purchased other people's pins. I have a collection of pins, but what I love so much about it is like, if I want, a pin of a kitty spilling roses, I can make a pin of a kitty spilling roses. And what I have come to find out is that lots of things that I would like to have that don't exist in the world, lots of other people would like to have too. So I think that that's a really neat thing about this. So that's pretty much the design for this one. So if you would like a Spilled Roses kitty of your own, go ahead to the link in the description below before January 22nd of 2023, and you can sign up for the pin club, and this will be the first pin that you get. If it's after that date, I will try to update the link to a listing for these pins if there's any still available, and you can purchase from there. Thank you so much, and have a great day.